Hello and a happy Tuesday to you all listening here on the SHL Network YouTube page. This is the SHL Network podcast, or should I say, the brand new name. The Scholastic Sitdown has won the fan vote with 7 votes. The Shell came in second with 4, and then the Locker Room came in third with 3 votes. So the Scholastic Sitdown, first official podcast with that name. We are excited. We have a lot to unfold. My name is Luke Jordan, and to my right, as you see, is the freshly cut Dylan Ward. Dylan, how are we doing today?
Feeling good. I just decided to chop off all my hair. I've gotten into this pattern of letting it grow really long and then getting a shorter haircut. I just decided to go for the buzz cut. So I'm rocking with the number three right now, and we'll let it grow into whatever it grows into.
Did it hurt when you're at the hairstylist to see all the hair on the floor? Was it kind of like, is it like almost a bit of regret, or are you feeling good about it?
Yeah, definitely maybe a little bit of regret, but driving home, I had the windows down in the car and just to feel the
To
air
feel
on
the
my
breeze, yeah.
scalp. Yeah, it felt nice. So, yeah, obviously, I'm not keeping this as my main look going forward. I will let it grow into a shorter haircut, but it definitely just feels good in the moment right now.
All right. Well, hey, it suits you well, Dylan.
I appreciate
Without
it.
further ado, we are going to sit down and talk some Scholastic. So let's look last week, just right off the bat. We're talking only 4 games, well, 5, but only 4 out of 5 saw a finish. We'll get into that later.
Yeah.
We'll jump to Wednesday, the first game of the week. Lake Forest hosted Stevenson, ended up winning that one in OT, primarily thanks to their special teams unit, 2 power play goals, and 1 shorthanded goal. Gavin Nelson, the game winner.
Yeah, and Lake Forest needed that win. I mean, they were 0-1-1 to start the year, so a regulation loss, overtime loss. And they're playing a Stevenson team that looks a lot better than it did last year. They came into that game 1-0. But like you said, good special teams performance by Lake Forest. A couple good individual performances as well. Grady Strothman with 2 goals, and John Walsh with 3 assists en route to that 4-3 victory for Lake Forest. Logan Marsh in net also makes 21 saves on the 24 shots he saw. So the Scouts, it's been a little bit tough for them since they joined the SHL a few years ago, but they have been slowly climbing the ladder. They missed the playoffs the first year. They made the playoffs last season. I'm sure they're going to want to get a higher seed than number 8 this year and got to get points on the board, and they got 2 with that one.
Then we would jump to Thursday, only game on Thursday. New Trier starting their chaotic weekend as they hosted St. Ignatius and just barely escaped out of that one, winning that one 3-2. St. Ignatius, who's now 3-3, they have lost every single one of their games by only 1 goal. So they have been in some tight matchups.
Yeah, and in this one they outshot New Trier 2, 22-19. It was one of those games where it looks a lot closer than it was for a lot of the game. On the final score, 3-2, New Trier with a 3-goal second period, and then coming in with the third period, St. Ignatius did not get on the board until over 10 minutes into the period. 6:28 left on the clock. Simon Moynihan gets the goal to make it 3-1. Then Austin Haynes, with only 1.5 left, makes it 3-2. So you got to figure that was what the goalie pulled. And then they just could not get that third one to tie the game up. So New Trier, another good game for them. Uh, Let it slip away a little bit in that third period, but not enough for a loss. Actually, in that third as well, St. Ignatius had the lead in shots 13-3. So they were all hands on deck, just could not find that third game tying goal.
And that's impressive because, from personal experience, at least with my team, whenever we would go down, it was just kind of like deflating. There was nothing left in us. We kind of knew the end result. And when you go down to the number 1 team in the state ranked and you're still able to claw back and end up with a 1 goal loss, I mean, it's still pretty impressive on Ignatius's part, and they can carry that third period as a tribute to how they want to play against them in the future. So, I mean, absolutely a great point you make there. We look to Friday. Lone game on Friday, New Trier, Glenbrook North. New Trier about to hop onto the ice for the third period, up 2-1 on Glenbrook North. And one thing about the SHL, we have some rowdy fans, and the student section happened to break a pane of the glass. And unfortunately, that game is to be continued. It'll start at the third period. And they're actually thinking about adding the third period onto a future game, but they don't meet each other again until January. It's pretty crazy, Dylan.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation, and we've seen this a couple of times in the SHL, but not in the varsity league in quite some time. I do like that they will finish the game as opposed to replay it, because those first two periods matter, and you
Absolutely.
know the work was put in, and you just can't do that to GBN who comes into that third period trailing, and so they will finish that game, and I don't think it's a bad idea to add it on to an existing game because you're already going to be there anyway. Just kind of make it a four-period hockey game, so to speak. Play that third period, finish that first game up, go to the locker room, cut the ice, and then come back out for the originally scheduled game. That's probably what I think they're going to do. You don't see a lot of ice slots available for 30 minutes, so we'll see.
Absolutely. So then we look to Sunday. New Trier playing their sixth, seventh, and eighth period of the weekend, not the seven, eight, nine. They were on the road at Fenwick, took care of business. We are actually going to be talking to Fenwick's Giovanni Sena later in this episode, so stay tuned. It'll be our first ever skater or player in general featured on the podcast. Of course, we talked to Max Anderson week one, New Trier head coach Adam Charis week two, and now we'll have our first player feature in Giovanni Sena. But unfortunately, his team goes down 4-0 here, although not a terrible fight, but just some incredible individual and team performances from New Trier. Jack Herstrit, 3 points, and New Trier only allowing 1.5 goals a game so far on the short season at a 5-0 record.
Yeah, and this was another example of a closer game than this final score might have said. New Trier and Fenwick scoreless after one period. New Trier going up 2-0 after two with the Herstrit and then Ethan Baker goals. And then in that third period, New Trier just looked around and said, "All right, we're not letting this one slip away." They outshot Fenwick 14-5, scored two more goals. Jack Herstrit, like you said, and Hans Huber. And four unique goal scorers for New Trier. Both the Herstrit brothers score, and that's all she wrote. New Trier wins 4-0. It's a very New Trier final score, 4-0, especially on a road game. You know, outshooting their opponent 33-20 and getting it done on the road.
I'd almost think those shots would be more lopsided when you think about last year's teams. They almost doubled the shots of their opponent in most games. So, I mean, but, Fenwick, probably last year they would lose that game by more, arguably. I mean, this is a much improved team, and they're giving New Trier a little bit more of a fight. And throughout the season, with a young team, they can eventually build up and make things tighter. So you got to give credit to them for sure. Then we go down to Chicago, Fifth Third Arena, as St. Ignatius hosts a long-awaited Loyola opener for the SHL, and Loyola comes away with this one in shootout 4-3 over the Wolfpack. And the sophomore, I believe, in Pearson Daverman had the shootout winner. So what a moment for him and Loyola, starting off strong, beating a very strong St. Ignatius Wolfpack team.
Yeah, and this was an incredible game too because Loyola comes back from down 3-0 in the third period. They score 1 minute into the third period to get on the board. That was Peter Lochnicki, then Julian Gabal and Patrick Dine, a varsity rookie for the Ramblers, tied the game with 10:02 left. So they came out and scored those three goals in the first 7 minutes of the third period. And then the next puck to the back of the net was in the shootout. And it was a four-round shootout, by the way.
Yep.
And of
All
course, in the
saves up until
SHL, just
then.
the sudden death shootout. A lot of times it doesn't go that far, but this one
Absolutely
did.
not.
And Loyola, I mean, come on. First game of the SHL season for them. Looked like it was going to be St. Ignatius all the way. And Loyola comes away with that shootout victory. But now St. Ignatius, only one regulation loss in their first six games, in spite of the 3-3 record. It's really 3-1-2.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. And St. Ignatius, Just struggling with special teams 0 for 5 on the power play, although out shooting the Ramblers 28 to 23. So that'll do it for our week recap. We'll look to future games and matchups later on in this episode, but for now, we're going to cut to the chase. Giovanni Sena, first player featured on the Scholastic sit down. Let's cut right to it. And we are here with episode 3 special guest Giovanni Sena from the Fenwick Friars. Giovanni, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, of course. Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course, it's an honor. Well, we're going to start off with some fun questions first. Favorite NHL team?
I mean, gotta go Hawks.
Okay,
Love
good.
Bedsy.
Just making sure we
Yeah.
got a normal one in the room, that's for sure. Do you have
How
a
about
NHL icon, past or present, that you follow?
Wow. I mean, obviously, like Patty Kane, love him. Eric Stahl, he was my favorite player as a little kid too.
Ooh, I like that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
good
also
one.
you could toss in like Bufflin too. He's a beauty.
Bufflin,
Yeah.
he as physical as him,
I mean, I wish, but
racking up the PIM.
yeah, that worked.
So, Giovanni, you're in your senior year. You will be the captain at Fenwick. How does it feel kind of filling into the shoes of what was there prior?
It's truly a blessing, being a captain. Obviously, it's a big deal. It's really important, and I was trying to lead these guys to win it all. And it's not going to be easy, but I'm lead these guys, try to do the best I can to make sure that I'm a great role model for the younger guys and just lead these guys home. Something great.
Well, obviously, I want to talk about the start that you guys have had to the season. Now 2-2. You won your first game. It's got to probably feel pretty good. I mean, we're just now in October to already have two wins under your belt.
Yeah, it's huge for sure. Last year wasn't like as what we wanted to plan that to be, but it's great to start off with those two wins. But we still have a long way to go, and we can't just be sitting back. We still have a lot to prove in this league, so we're just gonna keep pushing. And yeah.
This is an interesting question. So, you guys have been in the SHL. This is your second year now. So, do you feel that you've developed a rivalry with any of the teams other than St. Ignatius, of course, or do you feel that it's really all focused on the Wolfpack just because you guys are in those dual leagues?
Yeah, definitely, Ignatius is our number one rival. But I mean, I feel like especially when it comes to like Lake Forest, we've always had like greasy games with them. But besides that, maybe I don't know. I feel like Lake Forest, Ignatius, and then maybe Vire a little bit because I know some of the guys because I played with the Chargers before, so I know some of the players. But besides that, not really yet. But I feel like by the end of the year, we should have another rivalry coming up. Maybe we'll see.
Do you feel like that first year in the SHL last year got you guys, sort of mentally prepared or physically prepared to compete in the league this year more so?
Definitely for sure. When it came to like our schedules, because we're both, in CCHL and SHL. So last year, trying to cope with playing in both leagues was not easy at first, but definitely from playing in SHL and CCHL last year, we've kind of gotten used to that now with the scheduling and just making sure to keep our bodies right. And even when it comes to just like skill wise, SHL is obviously the best league in the state, and it's way faster, physical. Every team is amazing. So yeah, it's definitely important for us to just get back on track with that and just realizing that it's not going to be easy a cakewalk when it comes to going against these teams. Like anything could happen, any game. So yeah, definitely playing last year in SHL helped out for this year for sure. So we're just gonna remember how it went last year for us and use that as motivation for sure.
This is more of a single game focus, but you guys played New Trier last game. You went down 4-0. You guys rematched them this weekend. What has to improve on your guys' gameplay scale to, have a better match or defeat the Trevians?
I think for sure coming down like practicing and just working out like all week, preparing our bodies, preparing mentally, physically, all of that, and just having energy all 51 minutes because you take one shift off, especially against New Trier, bad things can happen. So we just gotta stay consistent and just be motivated and play hard all game long. And I think we should be good. And we know even like this year, I feel like New Trier, especially defensively, is really solid too. Obviously, they're always great offensively with their goal scoring and all that, but defensively too, they're really good this year. Great goalie as well. So let's gotta get pucks deep, get as many shots as we can on net, crash that harder, and just be more physical, aggressive, and good things should happen.
You speaking of that back-to-back against New Trier, you guys are home for both games, but they're at different rinks. You guys obviously have two home ices the Edge and Paul Ruby Ice Arena in Ridgeland Commons. Just curious what rink you like better for playing games and why.
Oh, without a doubt, Risen Commons. We have our actual locker there, and we practice there all week. Like we have morning practice tomorrow as well. But I love Ridgeland. The atmosphere there is amazing. We have a bunch of kids show out usually for that because it's closer to everyone's homes, and the ice is just better. I feel like, and just amazing over there. So.
Do you guys, just like the other athletic events at Fenwick, do you guys have a lot of beef with Oak Park River Forest?
Oh yeah, lots of beef. Yeah.
Lots of it?
So actually we can't play OPRF at Vision Commons anymore because it gets like too hectic.
Wow, really?
Really?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Jeez.
What what
What was the
what
scene like
happened last
last
year?
year?
Yeah, so last year we played OPRF at Allstate Arena. So we have to like always find like a neutral point to play against them. We can't ever play them like at Ridgeland. I don't know like why. Like I knew there was like a fight that happened like years back, but yeah,
Wow.
it's crazy.
Did not know that.
Yeah.
That's some
Is that
crazy stuff.
Paul Ruby series coming up again this year?
Yeah, there is. There's gonna be a 3 game series again, so I'm excited for that.
Sweet. Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun.
Just individually or team wise, do you have any goals for yourself or for the guys this year in general that's just like located in the back of your mind?
Definitely just want all the guys to be like locked in and just stay motivated throughout the year, not ever like sit back or just get too comfortable when it comes like we already won like 2 games before, but that doesn't mean we be too comfortable and sit back. I feel like we just need to keep pushing it and have energy throughout the whole entire season. And then for myself, just lead these guys and for the best of my abilities and just be a good role model for everyone.
Who are some of the first year players on varsity on Fenwick that the league should be watching out for this year?
Wow. We have guys like Aris. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, so I'm not gonna lie, guys. Sorry, Ars. Listen to this, but
I
yeah,
mean, it's our job to pronounce those names right
Yeah,
sometimes, and we
exactly.
even
yeah.
fumble them.
So he's a really gritty guy. He's aggressive. He gets in the forecheck really hard, so he's really good. Blake Zorovich defensively, he's really solid too. Like I said, we have a lot of we have a good amount of underclassmen, but they're all great guys, and I'm really confident in those players to do well for us. So
Just in your senior year in general, outside of hockey, what are you most looking forward to?
wow,
Tough
wow,
question, right?
just like outside of hockey, just like
Just outside anything but hockey, senior at Fenwick, what is just like something that you cannot wait for?
I just can't wait to just make a ton of memories with all my friends at school and for us at school, we just made a fishing club, so I'm excited for that too. Maybe,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah.
Oh
So
my
Yeah.
gosh. I
I'm
wish
excited.
Palatine had that. Come
Yeah,
on.
yeah. So I'm excited to do that with all the boys and just making memories and having a great time.
Real quick before Dylan goes, what's your fattest largemouth bass?
Like a 6.5 pounder. I
Oh,
go for like pike too.
oh,
So
you go for pike?
yeah, I love
Nice.
pike fishing there.
Good stuff. Dylan, you got anything else?
Nothing coming to the mind right now. I mean, I've asked everything I wanted to ask.
Yeah, I mean, geez, Gio, you're one fast speaker. We just nailed like 14 questions in like
Or
6 minutes. So
efficiency right there.
I
Oh,
think
speaker,
somebody's
let's
hungry for
go.
his dinner.
Guys, make up some good food. Gotta get going.
Oh yeah. Well, hey, Giovanni, it's been a pleasure having you. Good luck this weekend and good luck with the rest of the season.
Thank you,
Glad
guys.
we were able to have you as the captain representing Fenwick for our podcast. And, good luck the rest of the way. We'll be watching you and eventually commentating your name. So hopefully we're saying Sena with the goal and not Sena with the 5 minute major. All right.
Yeah, good call. Good call. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it.
Of course. Have a good one.
Thank
Take
you.
care,
See you
man.
guys. See ya.
Thank you very much to Giovanni Sena for joining this episode. Always a pleasure to have anybody on. We have now knocked out a representative from New Trier and Fenwick, so we're making some progress. We still got a ton of teams to go, but we'll get you all in before, the season ends, of course. We're looking for a special guest just about every week. So whether you're a player, coach, heck, maybe we'll look to parents eventually if they want.
Why not?
Probably a joke, but we're open arms for anybody, and we'll see who we have on next week. You'll just have to wait and see. Anyways, now speaking of Sena's team, Fenwick, who plays in the Chicago Catholic Hockey League, there are other leagues outside the SHL, although not as dominant, but they still do deserve some spotlight. So now for my outside the SHL little segment here. So let's take a look at the IHSHL North Central to start things. Notre Dame, BGHW, Prep, all 3-0 teams. The defending conference champions and Chicago North and state runner-ups will finally kick off this Saturday against Highland Park on the road. That'll be a very fun game for those of you that follow the IHSHL. Two very good teams. We don't know exactly what to expect from Chicago North yet, but we will see. So that's all we have from the North Central right now. Still a lot of games waiting to be played there, as well as the Chicago Catholic Hockey League. The only team that is 2-0 so far is Notre Dame. So Notre Dame is 3-0 in the North Central and 2-0 in the Chicago Catholic. So they have
How about that?
come out with a great start so far, and both their leagues going to be playing a lot of hockey this year, and they've dealt with it early on very well. Still four teams in that league who have not played yet. That does include St. Ignatius. Fenwick has played one game up to this point. They beat the Marmion Cadets 3-1. And finally, in the IHSHL West, Plainfield, as we mentioned earlier, a red hot team still at the top, a 4-1 record with 8 power play goals in 5 games. The
Wow.
only unbeaten team left is Glenbard with a 2-0 record.
That Plainfield team, man. I've got my eye on them for the entire season now. They've
Yeah,
roped
they
me in.
they have been really fun. Just like a lot of goals, a lot of special teams action. I mean, they have
Yeah.
been on a tear. Credits to them. So that'll do it for our outside the SHL segment. Eventually, we'll be able to talk deeper into the leagues once they play more, but for now, they're still kind of building off the rust, just like any other league here, as we are in the final day of September for those of you watching this. But now we're going to hop to the upcoming week of SHL hockey. So this will be a fun week. Lake Forest starting to get a lot of action. That'll be fun. And to start things off on Wednesday, so tomorrow, Lake Forest will be on the road at Glenbrook North.
Yeah, and Glenbrook North, this will be their second game officially, even though they played New Trier. But if you remember, they played in week one, lost to St. Ignatius 1-0. And if we look at that game that got suspended and say it doesn't count because, well, it doesn't yet. This is only their second game, and there's so many teams now that have 6, 7 games played. Glenbrook South gets started this week. Carmel gets started the week after, and it isn't until then that we're going to have every team with at least one game played in the SHL. So the schedule balances out, obviously, and all the standings and stuff. But for GBN, they've been sitting at the bottom of the standings with the 0-1 record for a long time now. You know that they're going to be hungry to get a win and start climbing that thing.
Absolutely. Then we head to Friday. Glenbrook South, as you mentioned, their first game, taking on York, seeking their first win. York has been off to a shaky start, currently 0-4, but can turn things around with Friday night at Addison, 7:20 p.m. puck drop.
Yeah, like you said, SHL regular season opener for the Titans, and it's the Dukes' fifth game. So I believe they're what, 2
0-4,
and
yep.
2?
Oh, oh,
Is it
2 and 2,
2 and
yes.
2? So they have gotten the
I
two
keep looking at the
points.
darn game sheet records. Throw me off. They gotta
Yeah, yeah. If you know, you know. But yeah, that's why Sam has his Excel spreadsheet embedded into the website for the standings. But
yes.
yeah, so that it is interesting because 2 points is, sort of an artificial win in the standings for York.
Hmm.
Uh, they're going to be hungry. These two teams played each other at the preseason invitational where GBS came away with that victory. The Dukes, I mean, listen, they're returning a lot of guys from last season that went to the United Center and played in the state championship. That team that beat Loyola Gold last year when it was looking like it was going to be another Nutri-Green Loyola Gold final. Um, I'm excited to see how York approaches this game against a team that does not have any results in the books yet.
Also on Friday, New Trier and Fenwick playing for already the second time this season. New Trier, as we mentioned earlier, handled things pretty smoothly, 4-0 win, but every game is a new game, Dylan.
Yeah, and this is another interesting situation because Fenwick, they're home again for the second time in a row, but they're at their alternate home in the Paul Hruby Ice Arena at Ridgeland Commons in Oak Park. So that barn a little bit more intimate than the Edge, smaller. It's actually part of a Park District building, if any of you at home have ever been there. And you know, Friday night action, Fenwick hockey. I'm sure that they'll bring out some fans for that one. And New Trier Green. I mean, they're just going to look to keep rolling. So that game could go either way. I mean, Fenwick has been hot to start the year. They do have that 2-2 record at this point, but like you said, that recent loss to New Trier, it's tough to beat a team twice in a row. So New Trier will have that tough task, and we'll see how Fenwick responds.
Yeah, Dylan, as somebody who formerly played at Paul Ruby Ice Arena, I think it's actually very underappreciated. It's a nice little place. I played OPRF there, but now this is after they left the S. But yeah, it's just a nice little crowd that they can always get there. And not only that, but it was really cool playing Oak Park River Forest, driving right by the high school and the rink is right there. It feels like you're playing almost like a college team that has their rink on campus. It's actually kind of a cool feel. So yeah, definitely an underrated rink in Illinois hockey, that's for sure. And Fenwick, I'm sure, glad to call that one of their homes.
Yeah, the same situation over there in Glenview, Glenbrook South High School, just right across the football field, and there's the Glenview Ice Center.
Yep, exactly. And then after that, we go to Saturday, where Lake Forest continues their busy week taking on Loyola Gold. This will be a very interesting matchup. Two teams who have played little SHL hockey so far.
Yeah, it'll be Loyola's second game of the season and their first home game at American Heartland Ice Arena. And you want to talk about rinks that are kind of small and can really pack and make it feel like there's a lot of people there. American Heartland Ice Arena. That one hosted all the SHL quarterfinals, game one and two last year, if you remember that format. And Loyola, it doesn't matter what kind of team that they have year in and year out. They bring a good student section to just about every game. So I expect a big Loyola crowd for that one. And Lake Forest will be put to the test once again.
And they will be on Sunday, but we'll get to that after we talk about Stevenson traveling to play Fenwick. Fenwick has their second home game and total game of the week. Could be a crucial game for Fenwick to get back into the win column.
Yeah, and you know, Stevenson, again, they had that close one to Lake Forest in the win versus York. I think both of these teams are going to want to win just about equally in terms of the position that they have for themselves, and I'm really interested to see how this one goes.
And then 10 minutes after then, New Trier hosts York, and they are home. So 5:20 puck drop for Stevenson Fenwick. Then New Trier looking to move to, if they keep the pace going, if they beat Fenwick and then they host York, they could be on pace to be 7-0 if they beat the Dukes at home on Sunday night.
Yeah, and this is another team New Trier is going to have played for the second time early on in the season. So they had the two games against St. Ignatius. They had the two games against Fenwick, which the first one already happened. And then they're going to have their second game against York. So they're going to be playing a lot of familiar opponents early on. And, these two teams have seen each other a lot over the last few years, meeting in the SHL playoffs last year, the state championship as well. So I'm interested to see it. And this is, you know, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but it's going to be a big test for York to play this neutral green side and a team. It depending on what happens on Friday night against Glenbrook South, uh, York could be looking at an 0-5 start to the season. So, if they're going to want to be competitive in the playoffs, whether that be SHL or state, they're going to have to find a way to beat these bigger teams. And New True Green on Sunday, that's going to be one I'll have circled on my calendar.
And then the last game to close things out, that game's at 6:30 p.m. Fifth Third Arena, St. Ignatius hosting Lake Forest. So Lake Forest coming from the North Shore down to Chicago. Another tough task for the Scouts this week.
Yeah, and it's a really tough schedule for Lake Forest. I mean, you go game by game, GBN, Loyola, and St. Ignatius in that order. on the week. By the way, all of those road games, I believe,
Yep.
or excuse me, I think the Wednesday night one is
No,
at home.
I think they're all road.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right. Okay, so yeah, all road games that makes it even harder, especially when you have
Hmm.
to travel down to Chicago. Lake Forest, I think the northernmost team in the SHL, so probably the longest drive down to Fifth Third Ice Arena for them. And St. Ignatius, they'll be looking to redeem themselves. That'll be their first game since the one we saw last night, where they were up 3-0 and lost to Loyola Gold. So they're gonna definitely come out firing for that one.
Absolutely, and that'll close out what we have for the upcoming week. Dylan, any hot takes on the top of your mind?
Just about the week.
Yeah, just about the week.
Well, I think we still have to give our personal game of the week choice for this week, like we did last week. So I have mine in mind. I don't know if you want me to start or
Yeah,
you know.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I'm gonna give it to that York versus New Trier game for the exact same reason that I said when we were highlighting it. It's gonna be a big game for both teams. New Trier trying to keep that winning streak alive. York trying to get something on the board here early in the SHL season. That game, 5:30 p.m. North Shore Ice Arena, very accessible to a majority of SHL fans here in the North Shore. So I expect a big crowd at that one, whether it be New Trier fans, York fans, or just hockey fans. That's going to be my personal game of the week.
And I would pick that as well, but since you took that, I'm going to shine some light on the game that starts 10 minutes prior to that one. Stevenson and Fenwick might not be at the top of the league right now, but they're two young teams clashing for what should be a good matchup. If you want to see a good, close matchup, that is where you should be on Sunday. So that'll do it for our upcoming week slate. Now let's talk question of the week. This one is interesting. It's also controversial. It'll be fun. Here it is. So, the question of the week on episode 3 of the Scholastic Sit Down. If you could add another high school team to the SHL to make it 12 teams in total, who would it be? And now, take in mind, they would probably have to be a high school individual team, unless you are thinking that the SHL would add their first club team. But
Right.
I'm set on individual, and I don't know if you want me to go first or you to go first, but
I mean, I'll go first if you're offering because I have a feeling you might have the same one as me.
I think we do have the same thing.
It might be an obvious choice, but sometimes the obvious choice is obvious for a reason. I'm gonna go with the Evanston Wildcats,
Yep.
and it just makes so much sense. You know, they're in the same IHSA conference with the likes of Glenbrook North, Glenbrook South, New Trier.
Interior, yep.
They're right there in this North Shore area. They have a beautiful barn in the Robert Crown Center at Evanston Park District.
So much fun to play at.
Yeah,
Love it.
seriously. Very fun to broadcast
Gives a
that too.
professional feel. I love it.
Yeah. And I don't know, it just makes sense to have Evanston in this group. Not only that, is you look at the overall rankings of last season, they were finding their way in the top 10 every week on my hockey rankings. So clearly they're right there and ready to compete with the likes of a New Trier Green or Loyola Gold or any, big name SHL teams. I think that they would be a great fit in the S.
Not only that, but I do recall it was my Madison tournament last year with Chiefs. Now, we did lose to both Lake Forest and Evanston, of course, because they're very good hockey teams. But I believe we lost to Evanston by more than we did to Lake Forest. I think we only lost to Lake Forest 5-1, 6-1, which is, pretty good for us. But like I believe Evanston just handed it to us. They did not take their foot off the gas pedal either, but they were just a very competitive team, and having to play them on the road for that, I think we played them twice, but there was one of the games where they just had a ton of people there. It just was not fun because we walked in there, we were like, we know we have a chance, but it's slim. And then we held in for what I believe was the first period. Then they scored in the second, and it all went downhill from there. But
Hmm.
I like where you're coming from with the conference idea with that North Shore Conference. And actually, if I were to have a second team to add, I'm going to steal that idea from you. Deerfield's in that conference as well,
There you
and they
go.
have been another high school team on the rise. So if you take mine, I'm going to come up with my own. And I think the Deerfield Warriors have just been on an upward grind. I really do think that if Evanston wouldn't be involved, I mean, I think Deerfield would be the next option to make it 12 teams.
Yeah, I remember. I'm blanking, Luke, if it was last year or the year before, but the Deerfield Warriors played the York Dukes in the state playoffs, and it was a very close game. I think it was 1-1, all the way till the third period. York ended up winning 3-1. I think it was 2 years ago now that I think about it, but yeah, they can hang with the SHL, and like you said, if they just keep getting better and better, why not? And why not make the SHL like a 16 team league, North and South divisions, and I don't know, could be fun.
Absolutely. Well, that does it for our question of the week. Now we are going to cut to our trivia.
But also,
Oh,
before we do, make sure that you answer the question of the week too, because we did not get any
yes, yes, we
responses
want to hear it
last
from you
week.
guys. You guys can go with
Yeah.
the trivia, but we need some help with the question of the week.
And
I
don't
want to start.
forget, our favorite answer will get a shout out in the following week. So answer the question for yourself. What team would you add to the SHL and why? And that why is important because that will be, you know, part of who we picked as the best answer.
All right, trivia, let's cut it. And welcome back. Trivia question time. And this one you might have to dig deep. I did some deep digging just trying to find a question, and I really like this one. So, before we
Yes.
jump into that, it is typically going to be the first answer that gets a shout out, but both of you guys deserve one, of course. We did ask, and Dylan, would you repeat the question from last week?
Yeah, the question last week was who was the SHL points leader in the regular season in 2021-22? So we
And
asked you
that,
that last week.
yep, and that was Jack Gustafson. And I'd
Yep.
like to shout out Dana Locken, 7716, and Set Tone H1W, the two people who got that correct. Nobody got it wrong. So if you did get it wrong, you didn't type it out at least. But credits to everybody on having a 100% accuracy rate.
Yeah.
See how you guys handle this one. I think it's a little bit tougher. So
I
without
think
further
it's a lot
ado,
tougher.
what
Yeah.
is the name of the man that played at Barrington in the SHL for 3 years and now has NHL experience with the Calgary Flames, New York Rangers, and Arizona Coyotes? Let me repeat that. What is the name of the man that played at Barrington in the SHL for 3 years and now has NHL experience with the Calgary Flames, New York Rangers, Arizona Coyotes? Even Dylan couldn't figure this one
Yeah.
out before like we started the call, so
Yeah,
it's
Luke
a
asked me
tough
this
one.
one
So
off camera, and I did not have the answer in my bag. I tried. I said, uh, and this won't give too much away. I said, "Does his name start with R?" And Luke said no. Or did
yeah,
I even say R?
yeah, he said R. You're way
Yeah.
off.
So I was nowhere near the answer.
We'll see if any of you are. And speaking of bag, let's talk mailbag. Great
Yes.
idea preached by the great Max Anderson, helping us really kickstart this podcast. And he said, I have an idea. Let's have a mailbag where you guys can send in questions. And at the end of each episode, we'd like to talk about them. Almost like live radio when you're listening to live callers talking about how awful the Bears are, even though thankfully they won this week. But similar concept, ask some questions, ask us anything. We can try to give you the best answer we can. We can't tell you what lines Glenbrook South is rolling out with this week because we are not Coach Philbin, but we'll try to get you what we can. So for that, you can either email Dylan or I. We will have that in the bio, or the most efficient way is to just message the SHL network on Instagram. Of course, Dylan runs that, so he'll be able to catch it, and we'll make sure to talk about it next week. Now, if it does get out of hand and we have like over 10 questions or maybe even five, depending on the time of the podcast, we'll only get to a couple, but I guarantee you'll have a good chance of getting selected. So I think
Yeah,
it's a very fun idea.
yeah, and you know what? That's a good point about emailing us. And my email is on the contact page of the SHL website. So I think by the time we get this podcast up, Luke, we can get your email up there too. Now that we can put you down as the
Finally not a
podcaster.
high schooler anymore, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then yeah, so please send us questions, and if we don't get enough questions, maybe we'll try to put something on the SHL Instagram story. But we are trying to make this podcast very intimate and not, you know, posting, not relying too much on the Instagram. We want the decisions or questions or whatever about the podcast to be our listeners. So, for example, that's why we did the vote on the name of the podcast in the comments section, where what did we get? 14 votes total.
Yes, 14 votes in
I
total, seven,
guarantee
four,
you,
three.
I guarantee you, if I put that vote on the Instagram story, that would have gotten probably like 800
Oh
votes.
yeah.
So we want everything like that to be intimate. So we're gonna try to just have it be comments in the YouTube page or just DM the Instagram. But we're not gonna advertise it anywhere but here. But if we really just don't get any questions, then we might do something like that.
Yeah. Well, big thanks to all you guys for being here up to this point. I mean,
Absolutely.
me myself, I can't listen to entire podcasts, but I know we're talking about entertaining things. So actually, I do go back and listen to these, but not every podcast is like that. And this audience is special. We appreciate you guys for being here. Big thanks to Sam Schwartz, Max Anderson for helping make this happen. Dylan
Yes.
Ward, thanks for being here. Luke Jordan, thanks for being here. But it's been a lot of fun for week 3, and we will see you next week when Dylan is the host once again for week 4. We'll have a lot of hockey 2 to brief and a lot in the future. And maybe we'll even talk or at least hint about what we'll talk about next week. Maybe talking about rivalry series predictions, maybe talking about game of the week. We
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
tell you. We can't tell you. That's why you're going to have to come here and listen.
Exactly.
So for Dylan Ward, Luke Jordan signing off. Thank you so much for tuning in to episode 3. We'll see you for episode 4.